you like to? Okay, so our apologies, but we are waiting for a quorum. And so if you guys want to take a 5-minute, will be at least 5 minutes. Hopefully, it could be as long as 10, but hopefully not somewhere between the two. So if anybody needs a bathroom break or drink of water, go for it. And we'll have a quorum in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Hogamoons has treats up here. I mean, not Hogamoon, but Rodriguez, he's not sure.
Thank you. That's fine. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. And we'll start by calling the meeting to order. And so we typically do prayer and pledge. We're not going to do that. We'll do it at the next one. And we'll just start this afternoon with roll call.
Rodriguez? Absent. Bruner?
Here.
Hogaboom? Here. Levi?
Present?
Haverfield?
Here.
Skog is absent.
Absent. Wonderful. Thank you all for your presence today. And thank you for your commitment to the CDBG process. And I'm assuming most of you, as I look out there, are involved in nonprofits. And I just want to say that you're amazing, and community is about you and the work that you do. And it's important to our community, and we greatly value and appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time to be part of the process. I want to thank staff, Robin and Matt. Thank you for your work and for your efforts. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot of work to do what you do, and I just want to say thank you for your work. It's greatly appreciated. So today, we're going to start with Matt, and Matt's going to walk us through this program year and talk about the process and where we are and how we move forward. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor and council, pleasure to be in front of you. We've been excited to have this day come, so thanks everybody for helping me make it as efficient as we could. I appreciate all of your efforts. So yes, we're at the 2019 program year, so this application, round of applications will be beginning October 1 and continuing through September of 2019, 2020. Oh, yeah, the presentation, right out of the gate. Okay, same thing, starting. So the Community Development Block Grant was a program authorized under Title I for the Housing and Community Development in 1974, and it provides annual grants on a formula basis to state and local governments. They provide communities with resources to address unique community development needs, develop viable communities by providing decent housing, creating a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities. The city of Nampa, this is just a quick, I guess, historic look at our appropriation levels from as far back as I wanted to go to today. And it's kind of the justification on the right for if funding levels changed dramatically or went up and down, kind of what happened in that time frame. And most recently, we had 2019, we had a very small decrease in the overall funding level, but we also had 5 new entitlement communities enter into the pool. And then we had 3 dropouts. We had a net of 2. So the overall ended up being a slight decrease for us this year, hopefully with the funding levels they've approved. Out of the House for next year, we'll get an increase back up again. So the city of Nampa, I believe, has been an entitled community since 1994. As part of this process, the overall CDBG program, every 5 years we establish a 5-year consolidated plan, which we present to HUD, and HUD will approve, and it involves a lot of community input from multiple facets across the city of Nampa, and that helps drive our decisions towards housing, towards homelessness, and it sets our funding priorities based upon that 5-year plan. We're currently in the 3rd year of that plan with this round of applications. And as such, we will begin the process of starting to think about our next 5-year plan here in a year or so. As part of that annual funding, though, within each of these 5-year consolidated plans, we fund in 3 main areas. The first is the CDBG admin, which is capped at 20%. We're slightly under that this year. Our public service activities, which is what we're going to be presenting here in a few minutes, and our non-public service, which tends to be more our capital projects, city projects, things that I'm sure you're quite familiar with. But of all these things that we will fund, all of them have to basically meet one of these 3 national objectives, and it's something we focus pretty heavily on in the application screening process up front. They have to primarily, the most used one is a benefit low and moderate income families and individuals. That can be done by an area basis. It can be done by focusing on a specific demographic of the populations, like elderly or physically handicapped, housing, and then job creation. The second most common would be preventing elimination of slum and blight. That is a little less common. It does have its own caps. We do have a program for our historic facade program that falls under this category. And the last, of course, is urgent need, which is very rarely used. And if there was a need where we would possibly be able to use this as a national objective, we would probably already get a phone call from HUD telling us that they had some money for us. So once we go through our 5-year con plan and we submit our allocations in, you guys will make a decision hopefully tonight, and then we will formulate all that information into an annual action plan, which we present again in August to HUD for their approval. All that, every activity in our action plan that we fund this year also has to tie into our 5-year con plan, so they all work seamlessly together in order to make sure we're funding appropriate activities over the duration of that 5 years. We're currently right here, and June 3rd is our application presentation, funding allocation. Just a couple important dates in the near future. It's at your regular council meeting tonight. Your consent agenda will include the authorization for us to put out our action plan in June 14th and also open our public comment period. That will go for 30 days, and then we will at that point move forward with adopting the action plan and getting it submitted to HUD by the first part of August. So now we do have, I guess, for our overall grant funding, we have $796,464 allocated this year. Of that, we can choose to give out up to $159,292, which we're a little under that. The remaining balance to go towards public service and non-public service is $640,597. So we'll be looking at that today with all of these presentations and kind of deciding where to allocate those funds. Right now, our level for public service at the 15% cap is $111,504.96 is what we have available to work with, and the remainder would be $529.9302. I guess relative to public service activities, there's just a list of some that are considered eligible activities, most of which are represented in this room today. Services for homeless persons, services for domestic violence, childcare, healthcare, job training. We don't do too much of that yet, but services for persons with disabilities. All of our applicants today fit one of these quite nicely. There are a few that are ineligible. None of those here today meet this criteria. We screened them in advance, but in general, we can't do work on buildings that are for the general conduct of business, of the government, unless it's dealing with ADA compliance, things like that. This year, public service, which we'll lead off with in our presentations, we had 6 public service applications this year, and of the 111 available, we had 217,000 applied for, so we will have to make some decisions there to narrow it down to 4 that would fit within that 111,000 cap. And just as a side note, this year, and part of I think every year in the past, we've done a review committee to review the public service applications. This year it was reviewed by a 5-person committee. Each of the applications were, the committee was tasked with reviewing each of these applications objectively and scoring the application on the merit of the application as submitted. I think they did a fabulous job. We had a really nice workshop and committee meeting. They have made the recommendations, which I'll put up in a second. One thing I will note, just as far as the overall process working with you guys, I know that we kind of score these things and we had a set list of specific things in the application we're looking for. So the scoring is definitely a representation of the formal application, but it's not a reflection of how we feel about the program. I think you guys all do amazing work, and I think you all do valuable things in the community, and you should be proud of what you do, and you all deserve to be funded. We just don't have enough money currently. But of that 5-person committee, we did come up with a recommendation, with scoring. The scoring if you can look on the left there, it kind of followed in line with the application process. Each one had a score, rank, and then of the 5 applicants, those were summed and ranked at the bottom. Did you guys want me to go through the percentages?
It was all in the packet, I don't.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've seen all this.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to their presentation as quick as I can. So.
I do, Matt, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting here, and
Yeah.
I'll probably get the blue ribbon for being the crabbiest up here
Oh, good.
today. But eventually, I want to talk about the $159,000 administration fee. I'll have a couple questions before you get into the presentations. Okay? I just
Okay,
don't
yeah,
want
of
to, I don't want to
course.
interrupt
I'll have-
somebody about that later.
I'll have something at the end,
Okay.
absolutely,
All right,
for you
thanks.
to open it up. Additionally, we'll have anything that's not considered admin or public service will fall into a general non-public service category. This year, we had 10 applications that fell into that category, totaling $1.76 million, and we only have 529 to allocate this year, so we will have to make some decisions there as well about with the scarce resources available. So. Currently, this is the list of non-public service applications. We have the top 2 are going to be the non-city based projects. We'll have them present first, and then the remainder will go in order just alphabetically. So, and that's kind of where we're at this point. Hopefully, feel free to ask me your question. I'm ready.
On the 159,000 administration, we're increasing that by close to $4,000 or something, right?
I think so.
Okay. Anyway, I don't need the exact figure. Need a couple clarifications.
Sure.
Number one is the 20,000 on contractual services. Can you give me some examples of what type of contractual services we're spending those 20K on?
Sure.
Sorry, Robin.
Okay.
I'll keep smiling.
Yeah, so the contractual services are reserved for if we need to do any sort of planning. And that could be like Hispanic translation services. Those can be, we used a consultant this year that Matt and I have relied upon because we're both new to the CDBG process, that she has been a consultant from Caldwell. She has done consulting services to help us get through our action plan and correct some of the things that's happened over the last few years that needed to be corrected, and get the city in a spot where when HUD comes, we're in a good spot. And so we've used that kind of funding for, it could be for program services and also can be to what I just described with a consultant coming in.
So as an example, with just specific area that consultant has helped you with, is that where we're at a point then we're not going to be needing her continued services?
So, and also then the 20,000 is also used for when we are consulting to make the 5-year consolidated plan, then we use consultants to help write that 5-year consolidated plan, and they do focus groups and things like that to help us. It's about a 1.5 year long process.
Okay, so
to
you
get
feel
that.
like it's money well spent. That's the bottom line I'm going to be getting at on these things.
I think it's great money
Okay.
well spent.
all right. Let me speak the second one then. Conference and travel, $10,000. Help me with that.
So staff attends there's 2 conferences that we go to. One that's in Washington, D.C., that is the National Conference for Community Development, and that's in every year in January.
How many go to that?
There's 2.
2?
Yep. This year it was myself and Matt. And then in the fall, there is a Northwest Conference for all community development. And at both of those are, especially the one in DC, they're critical for hearing what is happening at the federal government level to understand where CDBG is going and the issues that are arising with CDBG. And a lot of problem solving happens there. That's the same thing that happens on a smaller scale with the Northwest Conference that happens all over the Northwest in the fall.
Okay, is it necessary, and again, I'm challenging you here, is it necessary for 2 people to go to the national conference? Or can one compile the information and do they have information that you can look, when you get back to town, that they will be taped or you can look at on video and so on? Is it necessary for 2 people to go is my question.
So I think it depends on the newness of the staff. So I'm not going to attend this coming year. So the two of us went this time, and then Matt will just go this next year in 20.
I think you're getting my point. I think $10,000 is an exorbitant amount to be spending on conferences and travel for 1 year. So anyway, I'm just challenging that we look at that closely.
Okay.
I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else up here, that's just my opinion, so, okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions from council at this time before we get started? Okay,
All right, thank you. Are we ready for public service then?
yes, we are.
All right, as I mentioned before, I think we're just going to go alphabetical, even though it may not suit everybody. But if you're ready, do the best.
Now I probably scared you, huh?
You ready?
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So again, we're going to start out with the public services activities.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
And it appears we're
1
going to go
minute or 3
alphabetical.
minutes?
And are you keeping
I was
time?
like, I thought we got 3 minutes. I'm scared.
So you're doing 3 minutes down there, Robin? Are you tracking the time? Yes. Okay.
Matt, how the power
Thank you.
cord fell.
There we are.
Matt, before you get started, Rick was saying the power cord came off the laptop, so we might want to,
Fell out.
thank
Or the
you.
battery will
Good
carry for
catch.
some time.
Okay, so for each person that's presenting, we'd like you to start by saying the name of your organization and then your name. You get to start first.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I am Kim Dugan with Advocates Against Family Violence. Thank you for inviting us here this afternoon. At AAFE, our mission is that we work to eliminate violence, and we do that through several programs and classes, but one of them being housing, which is why we're here today. The programs that we offer is our shelter, the transitional housing, safe and sober, affordable housing, classes and support groups, our teen outreach program, and then our learning center. But the one that I'm here to talk to you about today is the housing program. And for the last 10 years, we have had the pleasure of serving the Canyon County community with housing programs. We have 14 programs, or 14 houses within Caldwell that we're able to house those with affordable housing. Hope Lane Apartments Phase 1, which has been here for 10 years as well. We just celebrated that anniversary by digging dirt for Phase 2, which we start construction on in 2 weeks, and that was to do another 30 units of affordable housing. And it's a multi-use, so it's more supportive housing units than are currently with the affordable. Then we are the current CDBG homelessness prevention facilitator for Nampa and then Caldwell for the last 2 years for homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing for both of those. Homelessness prevention, 2018, the point in time count was 1,256 homeless individuals in Idaho, which was a 4% increase over 2017, but Region 3, which includes Nampa and the Canyon County community, that accounted for 47% of the homeless in the state of Idaho in that count. So with the affordable housing shortage that there is and the housing shortage period that there is, we have rent burden residents, and who a lot of them are just one emergency away. So the car breaks down, do you fix the car, do you pay the rent? We have a medical emergency, do we get that fixed, or do we pay the rent? So we want to make sure that they're being served as best possible. This past year, well, the current homelessness prevention grant that we're administering right now for the city, we received $24,000 May 6th due to the government shutdown. So we just started this on May 6th, and it was to assist 20 families. And so far, we've received 28 phone calls, and of those 28 phone calls, 3 have actually been funded because they actually met the call. Dang, they met the quality. 1 minute, man, talking fast. So 2 additional in the process right now, so we'll be able to get the 10 additional families served within the cycle. 2019-20, we want to be more proactive, so you'll see the increase in the funding that we asked for this year. We asked for a significant increase, but that is so that we can really focus on preventing homelessness and serving the needs that are really there, because we don't want to just barely meet the need, but we want to really serve it. Oh, and I'm done. Okay, so $67,000 is what we applied for, and that will support 60 families, not just 10.
Okay, council, this is our opportunity to ask any questions that we might have of the applicant. So,
You don't have any questions? No. Okay. I have some questions.
Of course you do. But be nice.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll tell. I got up on the right side of the bed. It's just-
Oh, that's good.
After I going through those 1,300 and some pages, I got a little ornery, I guess. Thank you, Mrs. Dugan. Thanks,
You bet.
and thanks for the program. There's no question from what I read, your program is a great program. Question, how do you collaborate with Salvation Army and Catch as far as especially in the Homeless Connect program? How does that work?
We are part of the continuum of care for Region 3, and we have been an active participant for the last 10 years. In fact, I served on the governance committee that began the whole program, so we're deeply involved.
So my understanding, whenever there's a backup as far as folks who actually need housing, whether you're at rapid housing or rehousing, whatever the case is. So from my understanding from Catch and Salvation Army, they are collaborating as far as when there is an applicant or whatever, then there's one person those applications are going through, and they can then find out who has availability, whether it's Catch, whether it's Salvation Army.
Yes.
Are you included in that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and have been.
Okay, for some time. So the new Hope 2 project that's going to be taking place, who are you hoping to have that house? That's in Caldwell, correct?
That's Caldwell, and that's for this, it's an affordable housing program through IHFA, funded through HUD, and through, we've got homelessness, we've got three different sources of funding for that, which is about 3.7 million.
Who is going to be eligible to be in those houses?
Anybody who applies. If you are 50% area median income and below and you qualify, then you move in.
So for Nampa family
Yep.
that's needed,
Yep.
I don't think, even though I realize Caldwell's only 7 miles away, but I also see the possibility of children being taken out of a school and having to be changing schools,
Yep.
which I think all of us are aware that's not necessarily a positive thing unless there's a poor situation where they are going to school. So do you have housing already, or do you have housing? Are you working with landowners and so on in Nampa where you already have housing
Yeah,
available? And if you do, what's available through your program?
Our housing director already works with several programs in the community so that we can place those who are already homeless. But the homelessness prevention is to prevent them from becoming homeless, so they're already in a home. So if it comes down to applying for rent or paying your rent or paying a medical bill or getting the car fixed or buying new tires for the car, that's what the homelessness prevention is there for. The rapid rehousing is Catch, and they're more the get them into a new house.
Okay,
But
so-
we have there's not plenty of housing available, there just isn't. So if we can keep them from being homeless to begin with and can do the homelessness prevention,
So
then
you're
that's just one.
subsidizing then where they're currently living? And I think
absolutely.
this actually is my final question. So advocates against domestic violence. That is a huge, huge challenge.
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What's the reason that you're extenuating that into the other area? Why not work just totally with domestic violence cases, where I would think in those cases you're actually maybe moving a mother or father and children out of a situation?
Absolutely.
So I just
15 years ago, when we began our program, we saw that there was a need for more than just emergency housing, which was our shelter. That's a 90-day emergency shelter stay. And then after 90 days, then where do they go? So our program then extended into housing, which was in affordable housing and the neighborhood stabilization program. And if you're facing a domestic violence situation and you're facing whether or not you're going to be left on the street or having to move to a shelter and be completely homeless, or we can move in and we can help you get to safety, we can help you get to a safe home, we can help you in that transition period, then that's what we're going to do. And so 10 years ago, we expanded our program into housing, and we've been a very successful
Okay,
program.
and so I didn't have so what's that different than what Catch and Salvation Army are already doing as far as moving those individuals out of that situation? Because what I heard before is you're saying you're usually keep individuals in their current domestic home situation, and you're subsidizing rent and utilities.
You can do it that way, yes, and it keeps them from having to move and having to move home, having to move schools, keeping the kids where they are, so that with the homelessness prevention piece of this, if they're already in a home and the offender is no longer in the home, then it's best to keep them where they're at and help them and help subsidize that where
And
they
so
already are.
I probably wasn't clear in my question. So
Sorry.
the no domestic violence aspect, where you're needing to separate a family situation. So I guess I'm, there again, the catch in Salvation Army, they already know me a little bit as far as repetitive services. I like to have one administration making decisions in those. So we have, you guys are making those decisions, Salvation Army is making decisions, Catch is making decisions in those domestic violence also. I guess what I'm getting at a little bit is I'm not understanding from a logistical standpoint why your services just don't handle domestic violence, and then the homeless and so on, those situations are being handled by other entities.
Because 10 years ago, we saw a huge need for homelessness prevention, period, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's for the aged,
Okay.
whether it's for, there's a huge need in Canyon County.
And
for
you feel like
homelessness
you're
prevention.
collaborating very closely, all three entities then? Okay,
We
thanks.
have, yeah.
All right.
I have one other question, and that is, so how do our Nampa citizens access the services?
We have a housing director, and she meets with them anywhere they need to be met. So they make the phone call, and then they're dispatched through us. If they go through to continuum of care, they're dispatched to us. If they call us directly, that goes directly to her. And then she can meet them at any location that's convenient for them and help them go through their application.
Okay, are there any other questions?
You don't want to ask this way. Okay, thanks.
No other questions? Or was that a yes?
No other question, but I have a point I need to make.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
I just realized that before we get too far along through this process, I'm sure most all the council members are involved with entities that might or might not be presenting something today. I do serve as on the advisory board for the Salvation Army, so obviously don't derive any personal benefit from it other than just the involvement. But I just wanted to make that known and on the record.
Excuse me, that's noisy. Randy, thank you for making that comment. One thing that, because I asked the question about Salvation Army and if there were any other, and what is the difference between a governing board and an advisory board? And my understanding is an advisory board, so you sit on the Salvation Army Advisory Board, and you're strictly there as a community advisor, but you are not on a board that is governing, that is making any actual decisions.
No.
You're there for advice. So you're not making any decisions related to financial anything. It's just advice.
Right,
Okay.
yes,
I just thought I'd clarify that.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, so our next presentation is,
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. I am Melissa Gentry. I am the CEO for the Boys and Girls Club in Nampa. We are primarily an after-school program. We'll serve over 1,300 kids. We'll see 230 daily. 84% of our children come from low-income households. 91% of that 84 have both parents working, yet they still fall below that poverty line. So we're there to help them have a safe, positive place after school. We are also there, sometimes we make that decision for those parents, or not we, but the parents make the decision if they can afford childcare or if they work, and if both of them can work. So that's what we do. We have an education room. We have a games room. We have 18 staff right now getting ready for summer. We're super excited. When the club was built in 2000, many of you sat on that board and helped us build that, and you guys did it absolutely correct. We are exactly where we need. We're in North Nampa. 89% of that area, I believe, is in low income. We are full. We have been at capacity for the last 5 to 8 years, and we are now at the point where, what does that mean? So we are excited to partner with the Nampa School District this year. This summer, we are doing a 4-week summer camp at Iowa Elementary. Our goal is to get our feet wet, to see what that means. We picked Iowa because it's also low income. They are at 67%. Centennial, which is right around the block, is at 73% low income, and we've also targeted Roosevelt, who is also low income. So we are hoping to serve an additional 100 to 150 kids at that site. We are charging $10 for them to come for 4 weeks, and we are fundraising the rest. We'll have 5 dedicated staff there doing the same programs we do at the Boys and Girls Club. We're open 7:30 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. They will get breakfast, lunch, and snack at additional no cost to them. So we are pretty excited. We have buses from all the Nampa Public Schools that drop them off to our front door every day to get them there. So we access all kids from all over the Nampa School District. We are excited for this opportunity, and it's honestly our way to kind of get our feet wet to figure out what that means for our future. My board is very dedicated right now to figuring out if that's a second site, if that is a continued partnership with the school district, and can't wait to see those kids. And our staff have been training so fast. Our staff have been training this last week, getting that ready and going. So we are excited for that. We charge $25 per child per year and fundraise the rest. Our annual operating budget is just under $700,000 a year. I have some of my great staff here with me today. Anthony Calloway is one that was in that request. He is our program director, will oversee both sites for us, and we'll be bouncing back and forth, and then we have unit directors as well. So we hope to make this a permanent, or our future on the south side of town. We need to expand, and our board is dedicated in figuring out what that means right now. So, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Randy's looking at me over there. Yeah, couple questions. Thanks, Melissa, and congratulations on their
Thank you.
CEO. I was in the dark. I was not aware of this till last week, that she was the new CEO of Boys and Girls Club. Again, thanks for all that you guys, the number of lives that you touch. Did I just miss, and I maybe did miss, in the packet as far as these programs at Iowa and Centennial and Roosevelt, was that in the packet?
So that's newer for us. We were still developing what that meant for us and what we needed.
Because that was my question, was understanding for any CDBG grants, there needed to be either expanded programs or new programs. So that would, of course, classify,
Yes.
but I did not see that, so that's why I was a little concerned. And there was some, on the scoring and so on, that was not in there, so that might have affected as far as the rating. So I'm looking kind of back and forth on that. The other thing is, as far as for the $30K that you are requesting, that is for mainly salaries and benefits.
Yes,
Can you
correct.
explain that to me?
So
Who-
our
gonna go through?
73% of our budget goes to salaries. We only have 3 full-time employees, myself, our special events and marketing, and Anthony, who is our program. The rest are college kids, just graduated, working with the staff. But to have that many kids and to have it safely, we have to have staff that are qualified to be there. I will tell you, one of our challenges is our salaries, because we don't pay as well as a lot of the other ones. So most of our staff start at $8 an hour. And it's good and bad because it's a challenge for us, but we also know we have the right staff because they're staying with us when they can get other jobs at McDonald's or things like that, where they could be making more, but they care about our kids, and that's why they're there. So.
And man, just clarification, I believe I know the answer on this. So salaries and benefits are not included in administration costs. Is that correct?
Well, with relation to a public service, we prefer to fund one of two things, which would be direct benefit or salaries, and they are eligible expense. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, because my understanding from what I read in the CBDG, they could not cover, the funds could not cover administrative costs. So that, I'm just clarification that salaries and benefits are not considered administration cost, even though in my mind, that kind of is a little strange, but.
There are certain situations where operating expenses would be eligible, but not very many. But salaries is quite common in what most fund, because it's easy to track.
Okay, so it's not, bottom line is not included, is not part of administrative costs,
Not part of any of ours. No.
as far as for granting,
No,
okay.
It would be what we fund most of for public schools.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. So who's next? I guess I can figure this out, but since it's not in the order I have on my sheet. Catch.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm going to run through a bunch of information really quickly because I only have 3 minutes, based off of information that I've been talking to people and felt like this is kind of the information that needed to fill in the gaps. So I'm with Catch. My name is Stephanie Day. I'm the new executive director. And we are a rapid rehouser. So what that is, Our vision is for every family and every person to have a home, and we accomplish that through ending homelessness in the Treasure Valley by inspiring stable housing, financial independence, and resilience. There were some research studies completed a few years ago that kind of broke down the cost nationally of different housing intervention types. And the reason that rapid rehousing has really been pushed nationally is because it tends to be the cheapest intervention, as you can see from our chart there. Last year, we spent roughly $4,200 per family that was successfully housed. So where do our referrals come from? They come from Homeless Connect, which the Salvation Army houses and runs. Currently, there are about 99 families on the wait list for a housing intervention like our program or the Salvation Army's Rapid Rehousing Program. CDBG money for Catch would fund our case managers. So we do receive federal funds that pay for all of the rent and utility assistance that we provide. So we're asking for help funding our case managers. You might hear the term case management and are thinking, what is that? So they help establish a housing sustainability plan for the family. Oftentimes when they're moving into housing with us, they're not fully stable yet. So they help them try to figure out how to get there. They help with the housing search, landlord advocacy, because sometimes we have to kind of negotiate with a landlord to get them to rent to some of our folks. They help with resource connection, financial management, and problem solving. And just one of the questions that was brought up, just so you know, we do serve families in Canyon County beyond Nampa, but the money that we are asking for CDBG would only be used for those families that are in Nampa. So what does rapid rehousing make possible through us? 40 families we served last year, which was about 145 individuals. 32 of those have leased up, and 8 are still looking for housing. So that's about 121 individuals we've housed. The average cost per family last year was $4,200, and their average rent that they were paying was $676. And then I was asked for a quick breakdown of our budget. So you can maybe not see super well because it got kind of small. But the bulk of our funding that comes from federal grants is about $151,000. That is for rent and utility assistance. And then the CDBG that we're requesting is kind of in that block there as a combination of different funding sources pay for our staff. We do have a little bit of money in there for the office rental that we have. We're in the old library, and for administration, for like managing grants, and for our data management system, HMIS. Oh. And I guess just the last thing I'll say is just to clarify a point, if our program were to go away, potentially that would be about $151,000 in rental assistance money that comes into Nampa that would go away as well. So that's why we're hoping to continue to stay here because the funds couldn't just be transferred to anybody else in Nampa. The Idaho Housing and Finance Association would kind of determine where they went. And the last time when Valley Crisis Center closed and we lost ESG funds, they left Nampa. So we're hoping to try to keep those funds here in Nampa.
Questions?
Two, I think.
Yes.
So just confirmation from what we heard prior. So all 3 entities, Salvation Army, Catch, and Advocates for Against Domestic Violence, you all work together. You have one caseworker, or however you refer to that person as far as placement?
We actually have 2, and it probably depends on the program, the size and the funding structures that people have. We have 2 case managers in Canyon County.
So the 3 of you, though, working, are as far as applications for housing or whatever going through these caseworkers, is there one person kind of deciding and seeing where the openings are?
Yes, all of our referrals come from
So all
Homeless
3
Connect.
entities are doing that, as far as Housing Connect. Number 2, have you ever placed anybody from a refugee resettlement project?
We have.
How often?
It's not very frequent in Canyon County. It's been over a year since we've settled a resettlement family.
What's the reason that would take priority over somebody in Nampa or Canyon County needing placement?
So the prioritization for access to the programs is a formula built through Homeless Connect, and they could probably speak better to that than I can on the factors that they use to calculate need, but they're looking at different factors that would represent vulnerability and service need. So they kind of prioritize the wait list based off of how much need different families have and how long they've been unstable in housing.
Okay, this is a statement. I wish everyone, whether it's refugee or otherwise, but I personally would strongly suggest that the first priority would be our folks in this area that are in need, not bringing in folks from outside the area from a refugee project standpoint.
It's fairly rare for refugees to come out here because the transportation needs are typically pretty high.
Right, well, you understand, though, it has happened. I appreciate your honesty,
Yeah.
Stephanie, but I just, and that troubles me. Okay.
Are there any other questions? None? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, are we going to go with Nampa Family Justice next? Guessing?
I think we're going to break the alphabetical order.
Oh, okay.
Griselda has consented to let Salvation Army go next, because she has somewhere she has to be a little later.
Okay.
So if that's okay with everybody, we will let Salvation Army proceed.
I'm sorry I came late. Classes. Yeah.
Thank you. Major Mike is out of town, so I'm filling in for the presentation and kind of got the time last minute. So I don't have a PowerPoint. I did review Stephanie's, and we're kind of sharing information. But I'm representing the Salvation Army with the Community Family Shelter. We have 3 main programs there. We have our Day Resource Center, which serves over 2,500 different people a year with meals and showers. We also have our winter emergency shelter, which last year served 120 individuals and 72 children during the coldest, most dangerous times of the year. And then we have our rapid rehousing program as well, which Stephanie shared a lot about that, so I can skip that. We agreed on her PowerPoint. And last year, we served 125 people that we housed through that rapid rehousing program. Just to, as in the previous years, because I've been to these city council meetings, council has been very clear, Salvation Army and Catch, you're doing the same thing, figure out, make sure you're collaborating, and come back. I wanted to mention that we did talk to Matt and Robin about doing a combined application to submit one for case management for rapid rehousing in the community. And because of CDBG regulations, that really didn't work. So we are here again with separate applications. But we also have 2 separate pots of money that if we don't both accept these separate pots of money, this money is likely to leave the city of Nampa. I also want to say that we host the Homeless Connect and we hire the Homeless Connect that Darrell, you've been asking about. Our main people who work with us are Catch, Salvation Army, and Jesse Tree. And those have been our primary ones. The only ones that we've worked with for homeless prevention is Jesse Tree up to this point, and they house just occasionally in our facility. They rent an office out. But we're happy to work with all organizations who want to keep one wait list. So, and specifically, we're applying for case management. Stephanie mentioned we do all of those similar things with case management, and we really feel like it's the backbone of the program. If we don't have someone there available to the families to keep them accountable, have someone to connect them to the resources, we feel like just giving out assistance for housing is pointless, and it's not a good use of money. I think that's all I have for this presentation. If there's any questions.
You know what I think might be helpful?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the difference between what Salvation Army and Catch are providing versus Jesse Tree, because the homeless prevention actually follows, I believe, more advocates, correct? So I wanted to clarify. So Advocates for Family Violence, there really isn't a crossover, unless I'm wrong, with Salvation Army and Catch. It's a different form, is that correct? Homeless prevention is the Jesse Tree model. And so it's different than those. Jesse Tree, it's providing rent assistance to prevent homelessness versus Salvation Army and Catch are actually trying to get them into a home. So could you explain that a little bit better than I just did, if
You
you'd like
did
to?
a really good job. Homeless
Okay.
prevention is to prevent homeless, is to keep people in the home that they already are in. Rapid rehousing is after they've become homeless, but it puts them in a home rather than a shelter. Currently, the homeless prevention funding that we're aware of through our Homeless Connect is with Jesse Tree. And they have limited funding for Nampa. I know they're based out of Boise and they just office here temporarily.
Okay, and so Mayor, clarification, so on Hope 1 and Hope 2 with advocates and whatever, what is if attempting to keep individuals in their current living situation, what's the reason for the housing of Hope 1, Hope 2, which sounds wonderful to me, but I guess that's what I'm needing to do, if that's not keeping them in
Actually, it's a
housing.
totally different, if I understand correctly, they're totally different. In that presentation, I think what was being reflected were some of the services and the work that's being done,
Yeah.
but the service is different. Am I correct? Okay, I'm
So
seeing
there's
it.
not, so there's not all three that are as far as on a waiting list for a new home. I'm not talking about existing homes, so that there's not collaboration from all three entities regarding on the waiting list.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We had our staff text our Homeless Connect representative who's not here, and we're waiting to hear back, but from our staffing level, really the main collaboration is Catch, ourselves, and Jesse Tree. They are different services.
Understand? Thank you
Okay.
for the clarification.
Are there any other questions for Salvation Army?
I just, as far as, I don't know if the other council people, the start of the application was actually, again, for advocates against family violence. So I didn't see a lot in the application for Salvation Army. So as far as the new, I'm talking about in my packet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the application for where it says I hit Salvation Army says homeless prevention and community outreach advocates against family violence. Cindy Ware. So anyway, there's something that I'm not quite understanding there. So what exactly is the additional program? Are we just extending what we're already doing and needing more funds for that? Or what's the new or extension program that Salvation Army is after?
We are applying for case management for this grant cycle year for rapid rehousing. So it
So
would
you-
be new,
you
it would
want
be
to
new
expand-
families. It would be new families.
So expanding what you're already doing.
Same service, new families for this grant cycle.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm looking at page 577, 578, kind of. I mean, you've got a long paragraph in 577. I think you guys started, I can't remember on what page, because I've scrolled down quite a few pages, but
Well, like on 576, that's talking about advocates again.
go back to 576.
And it's been clarified now at just the application process. Advocates started out on several of the applications. I think 4 or 5 that I read.
I'm not seeing that on mine, so
Okay.
that's interesting.
So is there something that I didn't, because I'll just go back, I'm sorry, and sorry to take time for this.
I think we just merged every application into one PDF for the packet. So unless there was a declaration of merger. But in the email that I sent out that had the link,
Okay, so Mayor, 574, if you don't, and then I'll be off
Let me
this.
see.
574, what do you see on 574?
Let me go down to it real quickly, make sure I'm on the right page. So 574 is Community Family Shelter, the Salvation Army, and then
That's not,
it's the application information.
that's not on mine. That's, so anyway, something's done here.
That's why
That's
you're
why.
having a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you, anyone else have that?
And I'd say the same thing. When I pull up 574, it's the Advocates Against Family Violence.
And that's 5 different times I saw that application. I think somebody's advocating.
Yeah.
Okay. That's even on the street, some of the street stuff, advocates was coming up for, on the street thing. So there's just something went awry.
I downloaded mine from our website, and you maybe did a link or an
Whatever,
attachment.
whoever sent me, that's where I downloaded.
That's where I got mine as well.
Okay, so
Anyway.
that was the difference.
Yeah.
That's our problem. Okay. Sorry about that, while
No
we're trying to
worries,
figure things
yeah.
out.
Anyway, I just. didn't
Sounds like
see-
a big packet.
I know you guys have a history. I know you're doing great things. I just wasn't seeing what exactly you were
what we were
advocating
doing
for.
because
Yeah.
it's not in there.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will say, actually, our packet is 1,365 pages, and it's really, really hard with a packet that large. So I think what we had happen was whatever was emailed out, there must have been a glitch in that because I downloaded from the site, and so it's,
Just got merged somehow. Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
So what you received did have the separate applications? Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm looking at a different page than you are, and I downloaded it as our council packet directly from our website.
Right.
That's probably the difference. So what the public is seeing is what I'm seeing. What you two have is
As
different.
an example, page 880, I imagine it's the same thing, Darrell?
I would imagine, let me get down there. 880, okay.
Yeah, Advocates Against Family Violence.
I'm at 79, come on, 880. Go backwards. I'm getting hot.
I've got 880 as the Salvation Army.
Yeah. See, it's still,
Yours is,
it's the same.
Advocates.
Yeah, it's just a repeat of the same thing.
okay,
Yeah, I'm sure, because I saw it 4 or 5 different times.
that's why.
Okay.
Okay. So, excuse us, boy, this isn't our best council meeting. So, not sure what our problem is here, but Nampa Family Justice.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for having me today. My name is Criselda Dela Cruz, and I'm the Executive Director for the Nampa Family Justice Center. And the Nampa Family Justice Center has been in Nampa for 14 years now, going on 15. And we provide services to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, sexual assault, and stalking. And we stick to family violence and all of the aspects of it. We provide all of the services, case management, counseling, a lot of crisis intervention. And with everything that we do, one of our biggest hurdles is emergency housing. We have applied through CDBG, and this would be the first application that we submit for funding under this section. And I am, requesting $25,000 to secure year-round emergency crisis for the victims of violence out of Nampa and the surrounding areas. So our neighboring DV shelter in Caldwell is almost always full, and due to the distance and the availability, we typically put up families in hotels until something else comes available. The funding from this grant would allow us to be able to shelter domestic violence victims at a very close location, 1 street away from the center. That being that we are having conversations and partnerships with Salvation Army so that we can secure 4 rooms year-round at a very close location, which would allow us to provide all of the services without needing to transport. Assisting a family through domestic violence takes a lot of resources and meeting times, and the goal is to deal with the crisis and then work with them until they are self-sufficient so they can break the cycle of violence. Securing safe housing is the first crucial step in safety, and it is a critical need in our community. We just don't have it. We don't have it here. We have other shelters in the area, but they are homeless shelters, and they have times that they have to be out of their rooms, and for safety reasons, we just can't have that. Keeping our families close would allow them to keep their normal life, quote unquote, keep it as normal as possible when it comes to staying close to their jobs, their schools, and their daycares. The funding would allow us to leverage our resources with Salvation Army and their mission of helping the homeless, vulnerable, and most in need. This would allow us to expand services to the community and enhance the partnership that we have with Salvation Army. We can serve the community better together. This weekend alone, we had 3 different families that came, that we had to house in hotels, and that cost alone was $900 just for this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If we were able to do this with Salvation Army, it would have cost us $153. So my time's up.
That was fast.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Councilman Brunner,
Just always,
I'll just start with you.
always
Yeah.
look to the right, huh? Thanks, Chriselle, for all you guys do. And I apologize for not getting out and seeing your facility. Tomorrow, we'll get her done. Anyway, question, and there again, it's just in my mind, and most of them out here, I figured out my mind works a little differently sometimes. But what's the reason, I take it you're reserving 4 out of whatever 14 rooms at the
Yes.
Salvation Army?
That is correct.
What is the reason that you're needing to do that and Salvation Army does not have that in their proposal? And they're handling that without you having to propose for that?
Correct. So the Family Justice Center would continue to provide the case management and all of the services for those families, but separating the 4 rooms from the rest of the shelter is just a need due to our victims being primarily women and children, where the community family shelter houses families. So it could be a man and his children, it could be a husband and a wife and their children, it could be a husband and a wife, or just a single woman. So that would be why we would separate and have those rooms.
No, I understand what would be separated. So is there something physically going to separate?
So that would be
Is
in
that
the next
what you're
proposal
paying
with
for?
with the other funding piece in CDBG.
I guess there again, I'm just being simple. I'm just seeing Salvation Army getting this done for you guys and then you reimbursing,
Right.
reimbursing them. But they actually do it and handle it, and they always have 4 rooms reserved. So I'm not understanding why another
Yeah.
entity has to be involved if you have a contract partnership
Right.
with them.
So right now, we don't have anything in place, and currently, the shelter does not run from February through November and sometimes December because it is an emergency weather-related need. So when it's the coldest months out of the year,
Right.
that is the time that they are serving, where our rooms would be year-round. We would be able to use the facility
Yeah.
year-round. So that's where we would provide the service.
I understand.
outside of
I'm just saying,
the area.
give Salvation Army $65,000 and let them handle it and contract with you, is all I'm saying, rather than
I think,
$40,000. Yeah.
if I could weigh in, I think I understand your question. So Councilman Bruner's asking the question, why, you're asking for, I believe it was
$25,000.
25,000,
Yes.
and you would be passing that through to Salvation Army
Correct.
for
Paying
caseload.
For shelter.
So the real question is, why is it that you're asking separately versus Salvation Army asking for those funds? And I'm guessing
the time.
well, I'm thinking it's ensuring that the funds are dedicated to this use, and I think that's the answer.
Right, and that is exactly correct, Mayor. It would be to secure those rooms for Family Justice Center, so we would have the ability to house them middle of the night. We wouldn't have to go through Salvation Army staff.
I think that's it. Do you have any further questions? No. Does anyone else have a question? I have one more question, and that is, when it comes to domestic violence, what is the greatest need that you have in serving whether it be a man or woman and children in that situation? What is the greatest need?
The greatest need right now is safe shelter. Is just a place to put somebody over the weekend, over the time being until we can get to the court and get the proper documents to provide them either to be taken back home safely or keep them in shelter so that we can continue to provide the safety and then work with them to get into their own placement, whereas where the other entities come in.
And that time frame could be anywhere from overnight to how long?
3 months. That would
3
be the
months.
emergency shelter piece.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. I don't know that I do at this time. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I think who do we have? St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels, if I can talk.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm Tanya Belagante. I'm the Meals on Wheels coordinator at St. Alphonsus Medical Center. And I'd like to say thank you, Mayor Kling and City Council, for hosting us today. And I'd also like to take just a very quick moment, if I may. We have some members of our St. Alphonsus Foundation board here with us. If you could just quickly stand up and be recognized. Thank you. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for supporting the CDBG application. So The Meals on Wheels program came to Nampa in 1974. It came to Nampa through Sister Mary Therese, who saw a need in our community to serve the vulnerable senior population with a hot meal every day. So essentially, that's what the Meals on Wheels program does. It serves a hot meal daily, Monday through Friday, to the senior citizens in our local area. And also on Friday, we do send 2 frozen meals for Saturday and Sunday if the consumer would like that. So Meals on Wheels is sort of a twofold program, and I always like to make sure that I'm representing that well. So we do deliver a hot meal to local senior citizens. But the other thing that we do, which is equally important in my mind, is we do a very valuable face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact and communication. We have 39 very dedicated volunteers who basically run I run the Meals on Wheels program, but they basically are out there every day delivering the meals, making the contact with the people that we serve. They are the backbone of our program, and we couldn't do the program without us. And essentially what they do on a daily basis is they make a face-to-face contact with our vulnerable senior citizens. They know what to look for, sometimes just saying, hi, hello, how are you doing today? They can get a clue if there's something wrong, there might be a problem, and our volunteers are trained to initiate a well check if necessary. So in order to qualify for the Meals on Wheels program, you need to be a senior age 60 or over, homebound, and living in the city limits of Nampa. And we are projecting over the next year to serve approximately 35,000 meals, which equates to between 110 and 115 meals a day. And I'm noticing our numbers just sort of continually increasing recently. And I talked to you about our volunteers, our 39 volunteers. In the last year, those volunteers donated 6,243 hours of volunteer time. And in closing today, I would like to thank the City Council for your time, your continued support, and I'd also like to extend an invitation to any or all of you, if you'd like to come and visit what we do, take a tour, and maybe even go out on a route and kind of get a feel for what we do.
Thank you. Where are you preparing the food?
At St. Al's Kitchen at the
That's
hospital.
right there. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that we've gone through the public service projects, is that correct? And I don't know how we're possibly going to get done today. I don't think we're going to be able to get done today. So, but let's go ahead and move to the non-public service projects, is that correct? Or what's the plan?
Yeah, I think we.
Okay, so let's go with, are we doing alphabetical again?
I think what I plan was to work again with the non-city applicants, let them go first.
Salvation Army or Nampa? Family Justice, who's first?
Tampa Family Justice.
Okay, Nampa Family Justice, okay. We'll try to be fast, and I'll try to push us quickly through.
So Matt, this is, these two presentations are included with the others also, as far as the 640, approximately $500, 640,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're part of the non-public service, which would be I think 529.
It's the 529 because you pull the one, I think the 111 out of that, and it becomes 529,000.
Okay, 529.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Griselda.
Hello. My name is Criselda, and I'm with the Family Justice Center in Nampa. And we have submitted an application to, I didn't bring anything with me to guide me, so here I go. We are wanting to remodel part of the basement to move our police department and the victim witness providers so that they can have more room due to the growth and expansion. Part of the basement at the Family Justice Center is going to be vacated this coming fiscal year, and that will allow us to reorganize and shift some of the agencies that we have residing at the Justice Center, which would allow us to have all of the community-based services upstairs and keep the clients and all the visits upstairs, and moving the system-based services into the basement, which would be child protection and the police department, and then our occasional visits from the prosecutor's office. So part of this funding would just allow us to enclose the area, bring in some sound reducing, pretty much, with the ceiling, you have a lot of noise and traffic and you hear people cry. So for confidentiality, we are soundproofing the ceiling from the basement. It would just allow for everybody to be at a place where they can work professionally, have the space that they need, and have everything being confidential and secure, which is one of the major reasons why we want them to be relocated to the basement. So that's where that application comes in, and I think you all have the paperwork, so if you have questions, that'd probably be the best use of my time.
I think I'm going to ask the same question of every single person that comes up here at this point, and the question is, if you don't get funded, what happens?
If we don't get funding, then it just won't happen. Things will stay just as they are, and it'll be vacant downstairs until we do get the funding. Part of the funding, the Nampa Police Department is bringing in about $20,000 to build the cubicles and making those work areas. So that's part of our funding leveraging that we have with the program.
So you're not achieving any sound, I'm going to say it's barrier enhancement, even though there's not a barrier by moving to the basement? So there's no, because you have more distance, right, between, but it's not, you're not achieving any of that, is that correct?
No. No, and right now, if you go to where the police department is, they are very cramped in there. They're putting people in places that they probably shouldn't be because the areas are too small. And, the growth within our city, we need that piece of the police department. The Crimes Against Persons unit, they deal with anybody and everything that happens with people and crime, and primarily are the victims of violence that we deal with. So having them to be able to work in a better environment and a more secure and more confidential, it just makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Salvation Army.
I'm pinch hitting here, so, anyways, I'm Margie Potter with the Salvation Army. Thanks for letting me present this, and we're asking for the capital funds to do a couple of upgrades on the facility, upgrade the locking system, surveillance cameras, the original carpeting in 2 of the areas, and window security. The family shelter opened in, I believe, in February of 2002. And at the time that the locking system was put in, it was, like the best technology at the time. And we all know that that's changed a lot. So we would be upgrading that similar to like a hotel type locking system that we could control more and help our staff be safer and the residents be safer. And then the surveillance camera, there's just some areas that need to be upgraded there. And then the carpeting is, like I said, the original carpeting that's been there, and we've had thousands and thousands of people walk through there since 2002, and it just really needs to be done. And then the window security is because in some of our staff offices, their computers, the way the office is set up, kind of their screens face the windows behind them, and they can't open the shades because people can see in at this time. So it would just be some security, some kind of window that the people couldn't see in to the area for safety reasons on people's private information. And I think that's about all I have.
So I have a quick question, if you could stay. So what percentage, so your door locks and upgrades, because we've talked a little bit about the use of the Family Justice Center to be able to secure 4 rooms for domestic violence use. Where does that fit in this?
Okay, so that would mostly be on the locking system and the camera security system, so thank you for asking that. And if it doesn't happen, what our thoughts were at when we discussed it is that we would just, right now, we're not going to block anything off from them because those rooms aren't being used right now anyways, during the winter months. So we would just, on a trial basis, to see how this is going to work out. But eventually, we would kind of block off those 4, if this works out, we would block those 4 rooms off from the rest of the residents there so that those rooms would be just dedicated strictly to the domestic violence families.
So would you be coming back then for additional funds to do so, or would they?
Yeah, possibly. We don't know. That's a possibility, or we could, look for funding in other areas. We're trying to get those rooms used instead of just sitting there and bringing that money and keeping it in Nampa instead of having them go out to other areas. So we have a facility just sitting there with rooms open. We should use them. And so this was a way to do that.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? No, thank you so much. I appreciate the extra explanation. Okay, now we're moving on to non-public service projects. And we've got Public Works priority 1, 2, actually, it's the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe, are all Public Works. Well, the last 2 are parks. So I think, shall we just go with Public Works? If you can do a quick presentation. And we're going to go through this as quickly as possible to help us understand. So Public Works, we're going to have you do First Street South, 12th Avenue, Orchard Avenue, and First Street South, 13th Avenue. Does that work?
I actually have it in 2 presentations, so the First Street and then the Orchard.
And then what about, okay, so First Street for both of them?
For both of them, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, my name is Crystal Budke. I work for the Engineering Division of the City of Nampa, so thank you so much for having me. I'll get started. So the City of Nampa Engineering Division would like to pursue CDBG funding in the amount of $98,520 to improve pedestrian safety and accessibility along the West Orchard Avenue corridor at North Horton Street and West Roberts Avenue by updating existing non-compliant ADA pedestrian ramps and crossings. So this is going to include the removal and then reinstallation of new ADA pedestrian ramps, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and then some new pedestrian crossings as well. Since the application of the project, nothing has changed as far as activity or budget. The CDBG fund is currently the city's primary funding source for the implementation of the transition plan, excuse me, which is actually required by the federal ADA Title II. And this project's purpose is to serve and protect low, moderate income residents and disabled persons by improving walkability, accessibility, and the overall quality of life along the West Orchard Avenue corridor, which is a 64% LMI area. And this is within Zone G, which is dedicated in the city's asset management plan for pedestrian improvements. And the existing ramps, there's 6 ramps at the 2 intersections along Orchard Avenue, and one of the ramps is actually over 15% in cross slope, and it's allowed 2% by federal regulations. So they're really hard to maneuver by wheelchairs, and then there's also tripping hazards and the like. So we're going to be replacing those, getting some new pedestrian crossings because they're very faded and you can't see them very well to provide safe crossing across the street. And then a couple of sidewalk walkarounds behind some utility poles that are in the sidewalk, making it very hard for wheelchairs to go that way. So the city has completed 10 previous CDBG funded projects. So we have the staff that know how to do it and how to do it properly. And if you award us these funds, we're going to design in-house, which will save a little bit of money. So it'll be designed this winter and then constructed next summer. Any questions?
No. So thank you. You can go on to our First Street.
All right, so for this one, we are actually applying 2 separate intersections. We submitted 2 applications separately because each of them is quite expensive. In the downtown area, we are targeting slum and blight areas to improve the infrastructure downtown. So each intersection is very similar in our preliminary design. So each one would cost about $235,785, which is quite a lot, but there are a lot of factors that go into that. So some of those factors are the fact that we are adhering to this downtown streetscape plan, which would require a lot of additions of electrical conduit and irrigation services and other things like that. Also the fact that it is David's Bacon wages, which adds about 20% to a project. So this one is pretty expensive, which is why we applied for them separately. So we are going to look at First Street South, which is a major downtown area, and the deteriorating sidewalks, which are actually 35 years old. That concrete is 35 years old. The fire hydrants there are 50 years old. The catch basins are also 35 years old. So we've got some pretty old, deteriorated infrastructure that we want to improve. So if we are awarded this, either of these contracts, then we'll do the same. We'll design this winter and then construct next summer.
Any questions? See none? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, so we just covered the 2 First Streets and Orchard, and then the next thing would be Parks. Is that correct? So we'll just go ahead and do both of the Parks presentations together.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to come forward and talk to you about 2 different projects that Nampa Parks has applied for through the CDBG grant funding. I'm Cody Swander with the City of Nampa Parks Department. Our first and priority project is a shelter, picnic shelter replacement in Lions Park. The current shelter that's in place is exact age is not known by our division, but we have documentation that is at least 40 years old with the repair records that have been going into it. It is built with wood construction and is not necessarily commercial grade or parks grade material. The application request is for $108,000 from CDBG funding to replace that shelter with a commercial grade facility that is large enough to cover the actual concrete pad. It's a very popular reservation site in the city of Nampa, and the current concrete pad is severely cracked and heaved in a few places, and the shelter top it only covers about 1/3 of the actual concrete pad, so 2/3 of the guests are out in the rain, I guess, if that is to come along. The second request is also in Lions Park, but it is for a replacement of a 24-year-old play structure. The current play structure is located adjacent to the swimming pool, right off Davis Avenue. The need for replacement, the typical lifespan on these commercial grade play structures is about 20 years. This facility is especially in severe need because of the construction style. It is a square posted structure that is no longer manufactured. So finding new replacement parts is impossible, and we've resorted to trying to replace broken pieces with other salvaged pieces that have come from other portions of playgrounds that have been taken down throughout the city in the past. So this is a popular destination for kids to hang out in the interim between the 2 swimming pool sessions when they are waiting for the swimming lessons to take place before the pool reopens again to the public. Both of the facilities would upgrade Lions Park and the surrounding neighborhood to modern standards. Any questions?
So I noticed that you've got the playground equipment actually is a second priority, and it sounds like it's a very high priority.
Both are high priority. The reason that the shelter is listed as our first priority is just due to the construction method of the wood starting to deteriorate, and either if it's not replaced, we're going to be looking at some short-term repair costs for metal sheeting for the roof and plywood ceiling.
And then on your second priority, the playground, it sounds like it's an older playground, and please, you maybe just said that, do we have it, because it's second priority, safety issues?
Safety issues are taken care of. We won't allow a safety issue to exist in the park. So what happens, or generally can happen, is as a playground ages and we can no longer find replacement parts, some of the fun aspects just get taken away and barred off with a barrier. So say a slide or a climbing apparatus is no longer available to put there. The slide comes out, so the safety risk is eliminated, and then pretty soon if you do that enough times, you're just stuck with a structure that you can climb up on without all the fun elements that make it enjoyable for the community.
So again, to this one, I think I understood you to say that you are kind of piecing aparting it, but it's still safe. And then have we already taken anything away from it at this time?
Yes, there's been a climber or two that has been removed and not replaced.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Housing Repair Loan Program. Are you going to go through all three of these?
Very quickly, I think.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, interrupt. There's a pizza gentleman in the back. I think he has our dinner and he looks a little confused.
Bobby, could you take him to the
Yes,
office and
okay,
have
thank
him
you.
put those, and make sure they're just bundled up so they stay warm? Thank you.
Surprised you didn't motion it mine.
Yeah.
Not yet, not yet.
So do we need to allocate some funds for that then?
Okay. Again, Matt Jameson, Community Development Department. Did you want to hear the housing
I don't
first?
care whichever way you go through, whatever is the most
Okay.
efficient to get us through it.
All right, so I was going to start with the newest one we had proposed this year, which is it's to go along a little bit with this LID program that's already in place. We have the intent of this program is to help aid and get low-income households to comply with the LID. The sidewalk repair program as presented would be a forgivable, no interest, no payment loan with the funds paying for the installation, repair of the I guess what would be the existing sidewalks for very low-income households. The current LID, as at least as my understanding, is the cost range is from $1,700 to $3,500, depending on the size and scope of work. The current options that homeowners have at present is to pay for the full cost of the LID at the time it's implemented, or to take advantage of the assessment, which is a 10-year, 4 to 6% loan, or at least assessment that they would then pay on for the term of 10 years. As we all know, low-income households are often living on fixed incomes. Paying cash for a sidewalk completion would be difficult at best. And an assessment over a long period of time can put a strain on an already tight budget. I guess as far as this program goes, the first year, the pilot program, we're going to focus on 50% of the median income and lower, which is actually what HUD would consider as very low income and extremely low income. That right now, a family of four, that would be an income of $36,800, which if, given those parameters, I think they would be, it would be difficult to pay for something upfront with the cost of living today. So if approved, each of these applicants would then basically get like I said, a no cost or a no payment, no interest loan for a term of up to 5 years. The loan would be forgivable if the following conditions are met. So if the subject property remains an owner occupied by the qualifying applicants for the full term of the 5 years, if they're not to sell, refinance, or transfer title during that 5-year period from the date of approval. So if all those conditions are met, at the end of 5 years, the city would just reconvey the deed trust back into reconvey the loan back over to the homeowner, and then at that point, the debt, it becomes basically a grant. If for any reason they do not comply with one of those, then at the end of whatever point that they sell or transfer title or move out and make it a rental home, at that point, they would be obligated for repayment. Given the highest estimate at $3,500, we figure we could help 8 homes with a $30,000, grant amount that would go towards a direct benefit. The sidewalk repair program, as we planned to, because we didn't want to commingle with the actual LID at the moment it was happening in this census tract, we were going to follow behind one census tract from the LID and try to pick up the homes that were not able to either take one of the first two options that weren't financially viable for them. So we would follow behind the current LID always one census tract back and try to pick up the qualifying homes and get them taken care of as the need arises, so.
So I noticed the number 41,000
Yes.
versus the 30, but so that was just an example. We would
The
be,
30,000 is the direct benefit. So the 41,000 applied for is inclusive of, because this, again, it takes administrative effort to oversee, place liens on properties for the 5-year time. Every year, we'd have to follow up with that applicant to make sure they were still living in the home, make sure that, with the follow-up with the title company, make sure it was still titled in the right name.
is that not covered in the administrative fee?
Yes, and that would be in the administrative, it would be,
The 159,000 administrative allocation, wouldn't that cover the administrative oversight to
the
a project?
41,000, it contains, I believe, it was around 9 total for some operating expense, some, what would be the admin, so that will partially fund. I believe it's 2 individuals for that program, if I'm not mistaken.
So why would that, I'm confused, because we have an administrative portion, and that should be funding all administrative costs. So why would we have administrative costs in this one? Am I missing something? No?
I wasn't involved in the budgeting process, so I'll let.
It's hard to answer that question then.
Mayor, so the budgeting process is that we did break it out per program. So you're going to see that there are administrative costs to run the critical needs loan and to run the CDBG, or to run the sidewalks program. And also there is a very small amount administrative to run the brush up program. So each of those have some administrative costs.
So why aren't those incorporated in the 159,000?
So all of the 159,000 is for running the public service and also for running the city projects.
Oh,
Okay,
and it's-
Mayor, I have a question, because in the reading, I thought there again that you could not have administration costs in CBDG grants.
You
And
can
this is not salaries and benefits necessarily. You're talking about
salaries and
administrative.
benefits.
Yes.
Well, you're still administrating, okay. I'm just, I think,
20% of every CDBG grant recipient allocates up to 20% of their funding to administration.
I understand that. That's where that 159 I thought was.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm confused. Maybe the mayor's got clarified. I don't feel clarified on it yet,
So
so.
let's, if we look at the math, we've got a $796,000 allocation. And we are just under the 20% cap for administration in the total allocation. And that's the 155. If you add dollars in these projects for administration, does it not take us over the 20% cap?
No, because they're not considered the public, like you're doing construction, so it doesn't take us over the amount. So they're specific CDBG projects.
Then shouldn't the 20% be allocated based on the public service? I mean, I know it wouldn't be enough, but it's confusing to me that we've got a cap and then we're doing it again.
So HUD allows us to do a 20% cap on our total entitlement. And so that can go toward the administering the public service projects and also any of the construction projects. But then when you run your own city projects, so if we want to do the sidewalks projects and as we do the critical home loans, they allow for administrative costs, salaries and benefits to run those specific
In
programs.
addition to the other, okay, thank you for the clarification.
We funded the home loan program, I believe that way, as far back as I've looked.
Okay.
In previous funding years, so the one employee sort of was partially funded by the 3 programs that they would directly administer.
Okay, Dent's guy's back on this again, Mayor. So is somebody's salary and benefits going to be increasing then?
No,
Not increasing, no.
it stays the
Okay, I
same.
mean, administration costs, salary and benefits, I thought differentiation. So I thought you said that the salaries and benefits were not part of administration costs.
They are part of the that first,
So is it just for public service where that applies?
we're going to pull up a spreadsheet. I think this might help you see
Because
where
I mean, I've read that 3 different times in the packet, that the administration costs could not be included in CBDG granting.
You're wanting this one, correct?
Yep. So in that first section, in the orange section, that's where staff for the CDBG program that administer or run the programs for the public service in the purple section. And then also in that next section where we would work with parks and also with engineering on those projects. So we do like Davis-Bacon wages monitoring. We do environmental services, environmental reviews. And so that person is being paid to do all of that work. And then could you pull down so they can see? If we decide to do brush up and sidewalks and then the housing repair loan program, those all have their own administrative functions.
Okay.
And so there's where you're getting more administrative costs because we're running a loan program. We have to make sure that everything's titled and goes through it.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm just not catching it. So it says Community Development Block Grant, CBDG program year 2019, budget form instructions, administrative expenditures. The City of Nampa has determined that CDBG funds may not be used to pay administration expenses for the execution of the project by the applicant. The applicant must ensure that other funding is available to cover any administrative expenditure.
Yeah, I think the administrative process or word is probably confusing, but it's meant for operating costs. We can't pay their gas bill. We can't pay their electric bill. We can pay salaries and benefits.
So, I guess next year, whatever, just maybe have that in writing as far as a little
Sure.
further explanation
Sure.
on that, because to me, it's very gray. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for explaining to me. I'm still learning.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, so the last one is Brush Up Nampa. No, I guess we have the housing repair too. Is that correct?
He just did the.
Did you do housing?
It was a sidewalk.
You finished sidewalk, and then,
So
I don't know that you need to go through all the CDBG piece of it.
the
because-
housing loan and the brush up, I think we're pretty familiar with. I don't know that we're
Mhm.
changing too much there, other than, again, we do have some salaries in those built in for the home loan repair program is very labor intensive. Same with brush up. I think Jared, if he was here today, would attest how much time he spent going out, meeting with homeowners, meeting with,
Yeah, it has to be.
and organizing, getting donations, getting business leaders on board. He's been spending a lot of time on that, so much that we don't see him a whole lot right now. And same with the home loan program. I've been working one through from front to back to make sure I fully understand it, as I am a support person to help that program run. And the one that I've been helping with, just as a side note, is a lady who's been without power since mid-April, and she came to us finally for some funding to get her electrical repaired. But I guess in the end, the amount of times I've been to that home so far to meet with contractors and to help with the process, it's just very labor intensive. So we do have salaries built into both those programs that we have historically as well. So if there's any questions about those other two, I'm more than happy to answer.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
We've had the opportunity to listen through the presentations. We have all the information in front of us. I think the challenge that we are going to face right now in time is the time to deliberate and discuss.
Mayor Kling, for the sake of just discussion, I'm ready to make a motion based upon what we've received and what we've heard tonight.
I guess I would welcome that motion.
Okay.
I'll let you go there.
And again, my understanding is the amounts requested obviously exceed the amounts available, so not everyone is going to come out of this as getting what they'd hoped to get, or maybe not at all. But I know that we received recommended allocations for the public service activities, and those look great to me. I think that all six are worthy to receive, but with the limited dollars available, that St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels received $30,000, Advocates Against Domestic Violence $21,500, and Catch of Canyon County $20,000, and Salvation Army $40,000. So that would be total of $111,500 in the public service activities. On the non-public service activities, I would make, and this is all a part of a motion, that Salvation Army Remodel Project receive $80,000. Napa Family Justice Center, $80,000. First Street South and 13th Avenue South improvements, which is Public Works' first priority, would receive $234,098. The Lions Park Shelter, which is the park's first priority, would receive $80,000. Brush Up Nampa would receive $15,000. And Sidewalk Repair Program, $40,000, for a total of $529,098, which I believe was what I've heard is the limit for the non-public services activities. So that would be my motion.
We would need to just reduce it a little bit. I think we were just over by 2 cents. Close.
I've got 2 cents in my pocket I can give you. Anyway, that's for consideration, if there's a second.
Okay, so seeing none, I don't see a second.
I'll second. But I won't, yeah, to move the conversation along and for discussion and to have a vote. And I have a question after my second. Is it possible to amend the council meeting with an action point for discussion and action on this if we don't get done by 6?
Yeah, and that was going to be my
Okay.
recommendation, is that we figure out what we can do at this point. But unfortunately, we do have a motion and a second on the floor rather than letting it. So at this point, because we have a motion and because we have a second, we need to have discussion and decide what to do with this before we can deal with what we do on this, the next question.
And,
So-
Mayor, my understanding, legal, Doug, is that the mayor does not have a vote if there is a tie on this. Is that correct?
I will check that real quickly and I'll let you know. Yeah.
That would be good to know.
That's my understanding from what my reading, that you are
Okay.
not able to break a tie.
Okay. So, discussion.
Is the math, is there a way to blow that up? Because I couldn't write down as quickly. And once I saw you,
You can just put this on the screen if you want.
He's an architect. He writes neat. We'll be able to read it. so.
Somewhat, yeah.
Is that a little easier to see?
can't, but yeah, the public service, I got that. You're just going with what the committee recommended,
Mhm.
correct? And then it was the non-public service amount.
There you go, they have it up there, and it's off by 96 cents or 2 cents, whatever it was.
Yeah, and off to the right, just the stuff that's like kind of in a little bit of a gray shade is just what was originally requested.
And again, my logic is that we're honoring Public Works' first priority, we're honoring Parks' first priority, and Brush Up Nampa and Sidewalk Repair Program obviously is something that's very important. The Salvation Army and Nampa Justice Center aren't the same amounts that they asked for, but it's pretty close.
So I have 2 concerns. If I could speak, I don't get to vote, but I will speak up. One concern would be that the Lions Park Shelter actually could be completed for that amount. If it couldn't be, then I'm not sure what we would be accomplishing. So that would be a question I would have for Public Works to see if they actually could do the shelter at that amount. And then we would be abandoning our housing repair loan program. And what impact would that be, and how long has that been in place, our housing repair loan program?
I guess it's been in place as far as I can see back in files. It's been there a long time. I think that would pretty much end that program as we know it. But what would happen at that point is we would have to figure out a way to sort of start to just terminate out all those existing loans that are making payments and just sort of figure out a way to, because again, we would be, next year we'd have to make some shifts around to assign the staff person that would then oversee that program without additional program funds coming in for that salary person, because all of our employees are sort of partially staffed because we all kind of cross over and help depending on which program it is. So as far as the loan program though, of all the ones I've seen, Rush Up, the home loan program that we've been administering, I see the greatest need here. For the lady that I'm helping currently has been without power since mid-April. Not a lot of options there. A husband in a wheelchair, son, not really able to help much. This week, I'm hoping she'll have power. That's really a long time to go without considering the conditions they're living in. But if you'll look here, we've got nine applications, all of which are what we would consider really primary services for a home. You know, sewer lines been the biggest. Older homes, older neighborhoods, which are predominantly LMI. All of those are having failing infrastructure issues. But what for me, I guess, what in the end, what would happen to these folks if they couldn't afford to replace that roof, if they couldn't afford a viable financing option, they would probably end up leaving that home or selling it. And in many cases, what I've discovered are people that have been there, they've got their kids living with them, or they've got grandkids living with them. They own the home outright, but they can't afford to fix the roof. They can't afford the flood insurance to fix, to even get the loan from me right now. We're still negotiating to get the flood insurance in place so that we can give them a loan. So those situations, I think, we would have somebody who's owned a home their whole life, or the bulk of their life, that would lose that home because they can't afford to repair the roof and they have to get out because it's either been condemned or it's no longer livable. So for me, that's a viable program, and I'd hate to see it go.
Thank you. Okay, so I do need to ask legal what to do with this motion, because I feel very strongly we need to pause. We're not going to be able to give the due diligence to this discussion that's very, very important tonight. We do have a motion on the table. We've had a second. I'd like to suggest that we get out of where we are right now with the motion on the floor in the second, so that we could, and then can we push this back to a later meeting? I don't know what it does to the process.
So I think you could have a substitute motion to set this out to a date certain and vote on that as a substitute and go that way.
And then the current motion on the table can just pauses.
Right.
So we don't need to take a vote on it then?
You would vote on the substitute motion. I think that the motion on the
amended motion?
So what happens to the first motion then?
I think it dies in lieu of the substitute motion being
Okay.
passed. Yep.
Well,
Someone has-
again, I felt like it was a reasonable way to approach this. If the mayor does not agree with that and wants me to pull my motion, I'll do that.
I apologize.
Yeah, I think that, again, I've been on council for 5 years and I understand the process, and nobody's totally, I mean, we have to give somewhere. We have limited amount to work with, and I thought that I covered most of the items that were important to the city. And if I missed the loan program, it's only because there wasn't an extra $100,000 available. So I'll pull
Okay,
my motion.
We could, okay.
And I'll withdraw my second. And my only comment would be that, the packet was 1,300 pages. I've spent probably 8 to 10 hours reviewing, reading, and also meeting this morning with both Robin and Matt. I commend Councilman Haverfield for making a motion and throwing numbers out there, because I know that all four of us could probably throw out different numbers and maybe nothing gets approved. So it was mostly, was it a reasonable motion? I think everyone who comes here you guys deserve what you're asking for. You're all doing a great job. I just wanted to say that. And I wish there was more to go around to everyone, but I respect the work of the committee. So I feel that as far as working with what the committee's recommendation was on the initial, the public service activities was a reasonable motion. So that's why I seconded that part. And then I see also the mayor's point that we could maybe on an item by item basis look at the non-public service activities and maybe reach some consensus and discussion as a council. That's one thought I had. And maybe as we do math and kind of work on an item by item basis, we can then have a total motion which represents maybe what the will of the council would be. But I guess my concern is to not get into a situation where there's a motion with a bunch of numbers, a second, it fails, and then another council member makes a motion, second, and then finally we just get fatigue and no one wants to make a motion because we're stuck. I know that was a lot, but that's my concern about the process, yeah.
Okay, so I would stand for a motion to continue this special meeting to a date uncertain. I'll let you word it for me, and then we'll,
It would probably be best to continue it to the next,
To
2
the
weeks from now,
next.
to the next.
council meeting.
Right, to 4 o'clock.
So
2
would that
weeks
be a
from now.
special council meeting, or would it just be on the agenda for the public hearing, or our regular? city council meeting.
You could do either. If you wanted to have more full discussion outside of council time, as this meeting was, then you could set it to that 4 o'clock special
So
meeting.
obviously, I'm sure the people that are here would want to come and be a part of that as well.
Okay.
So would that be a public hearing so that they would have a chance to speak or not?
That would not be a public hearing because there will be a public hearing on the process at a later time based on the due process that we have to go through. It'll just postpone the schedule by 2 weeks. So with that, then I believe Councilwoman Levi wanted to say something or make a motion.
You touched on exactly what I was going to ask, is what does that do to the schedule? Because just really quickly, I haven't said a whole lot of anything, but I really appreciate what Councilman Haverfield put forth in his motion, and I totally understand why he did that. I also understand the validity of the fact that 1,300 pages, there's a lot to digest. At the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that we only have a certain number, and we have to be very judicious, excuse me, in the projects we look at, because if we cut the funding too much from those projects and start playing with numbers, then the project is not going to be effective. The last thing I just wanted to say, because I know in a week I'll have forgotten what I'm going to say, and I believe it's valid, with the housing repair program, and someone kind of alluded to it, but I'm going to expound on it just a little bit. If the people that are needing our assistance with these housing repairs cannot repair them, and they come to a point where they can't live in the house because it's inhabitable, it's not safe, they now are going to be going back to these 3 other programs because they're going to need housing. And so it's kind of this vicious cycle that we're going to really have to give that some real consideration.
Okay. So I would stand for a motion to continue to the next. Can we leave it open, or do we want, I think I heard from this group that we would like to schedule a special council meeting prior to the June 17th council meeting, is that correct? So that we have time to have a longer discussion outside of the meeting?
Mayor, is there a time window that we're up against?
Or do we need
you
a
guys?
special council meeting next Monday?
No, we can wait 2 weeks if you prefer that. We can wait the 2 weeks. We built in actually 2 weeks to kind of give ourselves a buffer, so that if we do it on the 17th, we'll have enough time to get it submitted to HUD on time in August.
Or we could meet next, 1 week from today if we chose to.
Yeah.
On the 10th.
We have 2 more council people to have different opinions, so be all good.
Okay.
So Mayor Kling, so will item 1.5 on our regular agenda go away then? That's the
Yes, it will.
comment period, but it gets extended till after we have our next meeting then,
Yeah.
for 30 days.
I've got to pull it out.
So if we put out 30 days a week.
Yes.
Mayor, I think we need to do next Monday.
Next
with
Monday, the
30-day
10th?
comment period, yeah.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I thought you were coming up against it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important that we have a quorum. Is everyone here available? We need to just ensure that we have a quorum if we're going to choose the 10th.
Mayor, what
Yes.
time are we looking to meet?
We could do late afternoon or we could do evening.
Mayor, I would appreciate no earlier than 5 o'clock.
Okay?
I agree.
No later than 5?
No, earlier. Shall we do a 6 o'clock standard meeting time
That's fine.
on Monday, June 10th?
I-
Are you okay?
Yeah, I have a board meeting, a Lifeline board meeting to attend.
Could we do
preside
5?
over.
Could we do 5 o'clock?
What time's your board meeting, sir?
It's at 5 o'clock.
Oh. So can we do 7 o'clock?
I can do 7. Yeah.
Okay. Rest of council, can you do 7? We've got 2. We just need a couple more. Sandy, can you do 7 PM on Monday, the 10th?
Yes, ma'am.
Randy?
Remember, I made a motion to try to avoid this, but yes, I can make the meeting.
Okay, so the motion would be for continuance on this topic until, and we would call a special council meeting on Monday, June 10th to finish. Is that succinct enough?
That sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, would someone say yes?
So move as
So moved.
stated.
Okay,
Second.
okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
and Hoagboom.
Yes.
Thank you. So this will be continued on the 10th of June, 1 week from today, at 7 PM in this location. And with that, we will not take action on the items as noted. I would stand for a motion to adjourn this special council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, is that a roll call?
Shouldn't have to be.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are going to need, and I apologize for regular council meeting, we are going to take can we be back here in 9 minutes, approximately 10? We need a 10-minute break, and then we will be back to begin the regular council meeting. I apologize for the delay.
So we'll have to put the on your cheat sheet to one item off.